The next data collection method that we look at are sample studies. This is going to be at the bottom of page 9, okay, right after observational studies. And sample surveys are going to deal with two different definitions you're going to need to know. And one is going to be the population. What is the population you're going to be looking at? And the second part is the sample. What sample of that population that you look at? If you, so far through stats, have realized that if you kind of use your common sense when you are looking at words, that you, even if you haven't studied as much as you should have, you might be able to figure out what's happening. So sample surveys, number one, the population. Okay, and this definition is on page 10, right here. The population, or the entire group of individuals about which we want information. And on page 10, it uses the example, if you actually read through the book, it uses the example of, you want to know what every high school student in the United States thinks. Okay, that's going to be the population. The entire group of individuals about which we want information. Which makes sense, like I said, again, based on the actual word population. Number two, sample, again, is going to make sense if you use your common sense. A part of the population from which we actually collect information, which is then used to draw conclusions about the whole. Okay, and let me just double check again. Let's look at this, what it says in the book here. It says, okay, the population is the group we want to study. If we want information about all U.S. high school students, that's the population, okay? You must know what population the sample represents. So when it's talking about the sample right here, even if you only have that sample from one high school, they're going to use that to represent the entire population. Now, is that fair? Is that going to give you an accurate reading? That's something we're going to get more into in the rest of Chapter 1, but for right now, it just wants you to realize what a sample survey is. Okay, so let's look at example 1.5, public opinion polls, and that's going to be also on page 10. 1.5 public opinion poll says, polls such as those conducted by Gallup and many news organizations ask people's opinion on a variety of issues. The variables measured are responses to the questions about public issues. Though most noticed at election time, these polls are conducted on a regular basis throughout the year. For a typical opinion poll, you have a population, okay? In this case, all U.S. residents 18 years of age or over, and it even makes the caveat, non-citizens and even illegal immigrants are included. And the reason that's the case is because it's U.S. residents, okay, not U.S. citizens. Then it also has the sample of this sample survey between 1,000 and 1,500 people interviewed by telephone. Okay, I also put this on the notes from example 1.5. Make sure you understand what the population is and what the sample is. We have the population, the entire group of individuals, and the sample is a part of that population. Let's review example 1.6, 1.7, and 1.8 in the book. 1.6, the current population survey. Okay, read along with me in the book. I'm at the very bottom of page 10 still. Government, economic, and social data come from large sample surveys of a nation's individuals, households, or businesses. The monthly current population survey, says CPS, most important government sample survey in the United States. Many of the variables recorded by the CPS concern the employment or unemployment of everyone over 16 years old in a household. So I'm going to highlight that. Okay, everyone over 16 years old in a household. That's going to be my population, right? The government's monthly unemployment rate comes from the CPS. The CPS also records many other economic and social variables. Okay, so the population, the more than 100 million households, right, which we already knew. Notice that the individuals are households rather than people or family. not only is it taking into account everybody over 16 in the household, but it is then counting that as one individual, even though it's the entire household. So on the surface, when we first go through population and sample, it seems pretty easy, but as you'll notice going through these other examples, it gets a little bit trickier, okay? Now, these are all, the sample of this is 50,000 households interviewed each month. That sounds like a lot of phone calling, if you ask me. What I would like you to do, I don't want to waste your time on this video, but go through 1.7 and 1.8, read through what's happening here in the example, and then make sure you understand why they chose the population that they chose and why they chose the sample that they chose. Because I guarantee you on our tests and quizzes, the questions that have to do with that are going to get really technical, and you're going to think you understand it on the surface, but unless you've really gone over it, you're going to have a hard time distinguishing between those two things.